Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we have an interesting looking figure to review for you all, and this is a version of an Indoraptor. However, I unfortunately don't have a clue who actually makes it. It's another one of those figures similar to the Stiggy Moloch that I had reviewed a while back that does look pretty decent, definitely has some decent sculpt and everything, but yet it's labeled kind of like a bootleg on eBay and Aliexpress and everywhere basically that you can find this type of figure. I assume it's some sort of figure, some company in China that has made it, but once again, we are left without a name, a definitive name, because some listings will have it named with one label, another listing will have it with a different type of a label or a different type of a name. So I'm really in the dark as to who makes it. If any of you out there are familiar with this figure or have any type of an idea who actually makes this, definitely let me know. But regardless, it does still look interesting. I don't know if I would really say it looks that great, but it doesn't look terrible. It's definitely got a decent sculpt, aside from the much larger than normal head on the Indoraptor. However, the paint scheme, I can say, definitely doesn't look quite as good as it looked in the promotional images. The stripe specifically that runs along the side of the Indoraptor is pretty wretched looking on the actual factory version. It looked much better on the promotional images. But regardless, I am still quite interested to take a look at this up close with you guys, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that overall the scales and everything of the head sculpt do actually look quite nice, and for the most part it has a decent looking appearance as far as an Indoraptor goes. It's fairly similar to the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom version, I will say that, but the head definitely looks to be a good bit too bulky, a bit too large in comparison to the rest of the body. The Indoraptor is very thin, very slender, and has a very slender and small head. This one has a very large and bulky head, but again, it's not to say that it's bad by any means, because really it's not. It's definitely got somewhat of an appealing look to it. The jaw is articulated. If I could get it open, there we go. It doesn't articulate too far, but I think it goes to a pretty reasonable distance, that's for sure. The teeth are painted fairly nicely. You can see that they did kind of try to outline it with like a brownish the closer you get to the gums, which I do like that quite a bit. I think it gives it some nice color variation and something that you would actually see on a dinosaur like this, and I do believe that is present on the Indoraptor in the film, so it looks quite nice. It's just not perfectly applied. The teeth are painted with a whitish coloration, and overall they're not too sloppy, but they're not really that good either. The inside of the mouth does appear to be detailed fairly decently. You can kind of see some sculpt and detail there on the skin flap of the mouth, and it's painted with the purplish type of a color that I believe the Indoraptor's mouth is in the film. So as far as getting the inside of the mouth, when it comes to the coloration down, I think they did do a good job of matching up that inside of the mouth type of a color to what you see on the Indoraptor in the actual film. There's some okay sculpt inside. You can't see it too well, but it definitely does not look bad at all. The jaw does articulate quite nicely, so you can open it to different distances if you would like, which is a plus. It's a little hard just to open the mouth sometimes because these teeth are kind of crocodile-like and they're all over the place, and it's hard to find that spot where you can actually grip the jaw to open it. But once you get it open, it does work quite well. You can see the eyes have a little bit of sloppiness to them, but for the most part, I think they look pretty good. I mean, you can see here that some of the paint has run down onto the actual skin of the figure, out of the eye area, out of the eye socket, so it's definitely a little sloppy, but again, it's not terrible. I think the coloration that they chose is definitely decent and has a very appealing appearance to it, similar to what you saw in the Indoraptor in the film, but not perfect. It has been hit with a nice gloss, however, which does help to make it shine quite realistically, but in general, the figure itself has somewhat of a glossy appearance, which again is exactly what you do see on the Indoraptor in the film, so it's very nice to see that they followed through on that. You've got some nice sculpt work here in the throat region. It's a little hard to get in there and see it due to the hands kind of being in the way. You've actually got some decent sculpt even on the bottom of the feet and the hands, which is really quite cool. You can see that the sculpt and detail definitely looks pretty good for the most part, honestly. It's just that I think the proportions of the Indoraptor are off, but as far as the actual detailing goes, it's really not bad at all. You can see that up here they've got that kind of armored appearance that runs along the back, which is cool to see, and they actually included all of these quills all over the place, which is something that I think the Nanmu Indoraptor was kind of missing. Same with here on the elbow area. It's very, very nice to see those actually included on this. Something again that I think that was probably the only thing that the Nanmu Indoraptor was lacking were the quills, and they are picked up here by whoever made this figure. One thing actually going back to the face that I do want to say that's quite interesting to me is that, of course, the Indoraptor is this blackish coloration, but you can kind of get a hint of like a green in here, which is really, really interesting. Even over here, I don't recall seeing that on the dinosaur in the film, but that's interesting that they did apply that here. Helps to give it some color variation. You can also kind of see a white wash has been added to the top of the head. Again, just to mix it up as far as the color scheme goes. The overall paint application of this is fairly decent. Aside from this stripe, it's just really bad there. As you run back along the neck, you can kind of see some of the muscles tensing and stuff as we turn it. I think that looks quite nice, and you can also get an idea of how nice the scaling looks as we run along the body. The quills actually do look quite nice up there, and you can see that they're not just yellow or anything, which I don't know if the coloration of these are exactly like what you saw in the film. I don't think they were quite so bright as far as the yellows and oranges and stuff, but you can definitely see that they're hit with the yellows and oranges, which helps to give them some color variation as well. You can see along the back that it's a little sloppy as far as that goes, but it does help to give it a pretty cool looking appearance, even if it's not exactly the colors that you saw in the film. I think it's just that it's a little too bright to really look like the Indoraptor in Fallen Kingdom. Unfortunately, right here in the shoulder area, you can see the seam where the arm connects. It's not too big of a deal. You can see the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin a little bit, and I don't mind seams like that from time to time, especially when it's a dinosaur that's very dark like this, because you don't see it quite so noticeably, but it is there. You can definitely get a sense of the musculature there in the arm as we come down into the front leg. Really nicely sculpted front hand here. It looks quite beautiful. The nails are painted quite nicely as well. They're kind of just dry brushed over with this brownish coloration, which helps to allow some of the black to creep through and again give it a little bit of color variation in the nails. You can also see some of that brown has been hit here and there in the hands, so the paint application is really quite cool on this. I really wish they would have got that stripe better, but some of the areas have such a nice variation of skin color. Even as you run along the body, you can kind of pick up on some hints of like browns and stuff here and there, which is really, really cool to see. Really muscular thighs as we get back here into the rear leg. Beautiful calf muscles. We get down into the foot. I think the foot sculpt definitely looks quite nice. Again, those nails look quite beautiful overall. They definitely look like they're sharp, even though they're not really too sharp, but they're a little bit. They're definitely very solid, I will say that. Beautifully painted, however, on this rear foot, and also kind of struck with that nice gloss, so you can see them glisten quite beautifully. The dew claw is back here as well. You can see it over here as well. Really nicely done, I think, as far as the detailing of this figure goes. And then we move back here into the tail, and the tail has that same similar style of scaling as we run out the entire length of the tail. It does come out to a nice curve here at the end. Looking at the opposing side, the head is straightforward, so the neck isn't really doing too much. You can again see the muscles kind of tensing in the neck here as the Indoraptor has its head stretched out quite far, so you can definitely get a sense of the musculature of the neck. As you come back here, you can again see the shoulder blade there a little bit protruding from the skin, and there's the seam connecting the front arm, again just like you saw on the other side. Looks a little worse on this side, but it's not too bad. Nice musculature again here in the arm as we come down. I love the beautiful crease here in the elbow area, the inside of the elbow where the arm is bent. It's kind of up in the position like it's maybe about to reach up and grab you. Again, you can see some color variation throughout the hand there, kind of a mixture of some browns and the nicely painted nails. They look really nice as far as the weathering goes due to that black kind of creeping through. You can see the quills here on the elbow, again painted with the orange and yellow, which again are a little too bright, but it's not that bad. You can see the variations of brown kind of hinting here and there throughout the animal once again. You can also almost take note of the rib cage, it looks like a little bit there. This Indoraptor, you can see, is definitely thick in comparison to what the actual dinosaur looked like in the film, but you can pick up on the ribs a little bit there. Nice hip bone up here in the back. Beautiful musculature again you don't see it quite as flexing on this side as you saw on this side. You can really see it tensing up over here because it's putting the pressure on this leg. But over here, this leg is about to lift up, and you don't see them flexing too much over there. That's really impressive sculpt and detail, honestly, on this figure. When it comes to a company that does not even want to let us know what their name is, it's really decently done. It's kind of upsetting that they don't tell us who they are. Really nice sculpt as we come down the leg. The rear foot is in kind of an awkward position, but it's something I could foresee the foot doing when it comes to an Indoraptor, sort of. It's in somewhat of an awkward position as far as the way it's arched over here. Really nicely painted nails again. This one's got a little bit too thick of paint, but for the most part it still looks pretty decent. You've got that nice gloss on the nails there as well. And then we run out the length of the tail. Again, the really nice sculpt and detail as far as the scales go, and the nice curve here at the end. Overall, it's honestly a pretty nice looking Indoraptor. It's just that some areas I think are a little bit bad as far as the paint goes, but as far as the sculpt, if we take away the proportion problem, it's not bad. As far as the size goes on this Indoraptor, it is actually quite large, much larger than the Nanmu Indoraptor. For a length, you're going to see it at about 10 3/4 inches, or about 27.5 centimeters. And for a height, the highest point probably be the back, about 4 inches or 10 centimeters. Definitely has some decent size to it. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, and you should definitely have a good idea now that it's a pretty big figure, because it probably could quite easily take down Mr. Papo Rex if they were in a fight. It's definitely looking like it's about to sneak up and jump on him. But again, it's got some pretty darn good size, and I did mention that it is significantly larger to the Nanmu Indoraptor. So, here is the Nanmu Indoraptor next to this newer kind of odd, unnamed Indoraptor, and you can definitely see as far as the size goes, the Nanmu one is much smaller. This newer one is a lot thicker, a lot bigger. The proportions aren't quite right, but they're not too far off. However, I think as far as the overall appearance and paint application, the Nanmu definitely wins for sure. It really quite nicely matches up to the Indoraptor in the film, aside from missing the quills. But this newer one is definitely not terrible either. I really quite like it, actually. I think if I touch the paint up a little bit, it really could look quite nice overall. So this Indoraptor figure is definitely quite cool. It has some appealing features to it, and some not so appealing features to it. I think as far as the paint application goes, for the most part, it really does look quite cool, and definitely has a very realistic appearance to it as far as the way the paint has been applied. If we take away the stripe issue and just look at the body color, it really has a beautiful appearance to it when you kind of step back and look at it. It's got like a very nice gradual transition between browns and the black and everything, and it's almost so subtle that you don't even notice it, because from a step back it really does look like it's primarily the black color that you see on the Indoraptor in the film, but when you get closer you can kind of take in that brown a little bit and gain a little bit of respect overall for the paint application they've done to it, because it's honestly quite impressive to me. And then they've of course added that little bit of green on the face, which doesn't actually, I don't think that's on the Indoraptor in the film, and if it is, I never happened to notice it. However, it does look kind of cool on this figure itself. Maybe this is something you could accept as another failed Indoraptor experiment, and this one ended up having a little bit of green on its face and a slightly different look as far as the body proportions go. But I think overall, as far as the sculpt goes, they really did a decent job, minus the fact that, again, some areas aren't exactly sized to the way they should be, like it's a little too thick, and it's got a little bit too big of a head, and maybe it's not quite as slender as it should be, but it still has some really nice detailing as far as the fine detailing goes. I really love the fact that they went ahead and showed the muscles flexing really nicely on the thigh of the one side, but not so much on the other side, because the other side has the leg that's about to lift up as it's walking, and just the overall sculpt and detail in general is really quite nice, along with the primary body color. But if we look at the downside of the paint, the yellows and oranges look really bad as far as the stripe goes down the side. It doesn't look even remotely like what you see on the actual Indoraptor in the film, and they just kind of splotched orange and yellow paint all over the place, which I think really does take this down quite a few notches as far as the overall appeal factor goes, because with the addition of how nice the paint is on the Nanmu one, it looks so incredible because they did such a good job on the paint application. This one, I think, hit on some of the things that the Nanmu one missed, like the quills and everything, but because the paint is so poorly applied, it really takes away from the figure, especially with how bright some of the paint is, like the yellow and orange that are on the quills. It's just way too bright for me. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good either. So if you maybe have some repainting skills and you can touch this up a little bit to look more like the actual stripe looks on the Indoraptor in the film and maybe touch up some of the quills, it could be a very cool looking Indoraptor, that's for sure. Overall, I think, like I said, the sculpt is really quite nice. It's just got a few issues, like the paint application looking kind of shoddy in some areas and the overall body proportions being a bit off, but regardless, it's still a really cool looking Indoraptor figure, something I did not expect to look quite as nice as it does, and it's got some impressive size to it as well. So if you would like to buy this, I will throw a link in the description to an Aliexpress seller where I purchased mine. It runs about $25–30. Sometimes you can catch it on sale and get it for around the $25 mark, but it's not a bad price, honestly, for a figure as big as this is, because overall it is a fairly decent size and not a bad looking figure. So check the description, go buy this Indoraptor if you would like, but before you do that, don't forget to please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of any future videos, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.